Hey, fight fans, welcome back to Carlo Perusa MMA. I'm the fight doctor, Mr. Carlo Perusa, and today I'm with one of the bosses over at Gamebred FC. He is Mr. Dean Toole. He's the man that never sleeps because he's constantly up to something. Huge Gamebred FC contest going down November 15th, Biloxi, Mississippi. Dean, there's so many former UFC fighters on this card. I think I have lost count. I mean, this is one of the best fight cards I've ever seen, and you guys are just getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and fights are just getting better and better, man. How excited are you for this upcoming event?
We are so excited. This is what I think. I think this is probably the best fight card I've ever put together in the 14 years I've been in this business. Absolutely 15 or 16 now. I really don't even remember. But yeah, out of that time, this is definitely one of the greatest cards I've ever put together. And I put together some pretty amazing cards. This one, as far as like from a fight fan perspective, we have 12 UFC total vets on the card out of 11 fights, and all of them, there's a ton of them that are multiple fight of the night winners. So every fight on the card, we couldn't even pick the order, and I still don't know if we have the order yet. And I think we had to do it like with a randomizer so we didn't upset people, because every single fight on the card deserves a main event spot, a co-main event spot, or a featured bout spot for sure.
You know, that main event, absolutely incredible. You got a guy, Brandon Davis, fighting in his backyard, Biloxi, Mississippi, rematching Randy Costa, a guy that Randy Costa found his debut in the UFC. Obviously, Randy Costa just signing a deal with you guys. He's emerging as could be one of the future faces, you know, of the whole Gamebred platform. This is an event, a fight that a lot of people want to see. It's for that inaugural 135 strap. What was the idea between pairing these two gentlemen together?
I mean, Brandon Davis is one of my favorite people to watch fight ever, and I love watching Randy Costa fight. I helped Combat FC do their first event on UFC Fight Pass, and I was up there and I actually got to meet Randy for the first time there. So Randy's always comes to fight. He fucking bangs. Brandon Davis is one of the most exciting guys ever. Brandon Davis also, like, a lot of people don't really look at his record. He had so many a lot of his losses in the UFC were split decision losses, and he had an absolutely insane lineup of people that he fought. You know, so I don't think like Brandon gets the credit deserved for his level of competition, the quality of the level of competition he's faced, and the fact that he's went to a split decision with a lot of these people. I think he fought like the winner of the Ultimate Fighter, the kid from Chile or whatever that was, who's just a straight up wrestler, grappler. Zabit, obviously one of the best grapplers. They're just both phenomenal guys. Their first fight was fucking epic, and like that's what we want at Gamebred Bareknuckle. We want to bring in guys that come to fight, guys that come to throw down, guys that want to come entertain the fans, and those are the people that we book. These guys won a fight of the night bonus. Several times they've won fight of the night bonuses in the UFC. A lot of the fighters on the card, everybody from Jason Knight to Brandon Davis, Randy Costa, everybody, they're all former fight of the night winners or bonus winners. Chase Sherman, all these guys come to fight, and that's how we built out this fight card. Like, you know, we were gonna wait, and we didn't do an event because obviously Masvidal had the boxing match with Nate Diaz, so we didn't do an event after March because we were waiting until that event was done, and we didn't want to confuse people. George does a lot of media, so especially for our fights, and he was doing a ton of media for the boxing match, so it would have just kind of got misconstrued there. So we held off, and collectively as a team, everyone wanted to just start fresh in the end of January or February, and just me, Masvidal, Victoria, everybody, we were kind of like, look, we need to do an event before the end of the year, and we owed some people fights that have been waiting. So we decided to do the event in Biloxi. It's an incredible market for us. We have incredible relationships with all the fighters. A lot of those guys, you know, in their early stages fought for us, whether it was Island Fights or Icon or any of the shows, went on to the UFC, PFL, wherever they went. And it's cool to have those guys fighting for us again. And we think it's one of the biggest shows in the world, and it's going to be one of the biggest shows in the world. So this fight card is the absolute best fight card we've ever done, and the main event is going to be one of the greatest fights you've ever seen.
In addition to that main event, what you guys currently have listed as the co-main event, Chase Sherman, Maurice Green, another absolute banger that is very exciting. Originally Greg Hardy was announced to fight Chase. Something happened. Maurice Green makes his bare-knuckle debut. What are your expectations for this contest?
That's a crazy fight, man. Chase, also another guy, is one of the most exciting guys you ever want to watch fight. I mean, Chase has been fighting. I think Chase made his pro debut with us 2013, 2014, somewhere around then. He fought a few times as a professional, 6 or 7 times, made it to the UFC. They released him. He fought another guy who, just like, first of all, people get released from the UFC and they think, oh, my career's over. Chase Sherman got released from the UFC. He fought for us for Island Fights. He fought 3 fights in a row, broke 2 guys' legs with leg kicks in the first round. Also, in the same time, fought for BKFC and became either the Police Gazette BKF or Bareknuckle World Champion. He became a world champion. I forget what it was called. One of those titles for BKFC at the time. And then in that time, got re-signed back to the UFC, went over there and had, I don't even know, 8 to 10 more fights. He was there for a few more years after that. And then he comes back out and he's competing at the highest level again. And he's also a person that's in line to eventually fight for the heavyweight world title. So we have a ton of heavyweight fights on this card. Obviously, Maurice Green, definitely no slouch there. Former Glory kickboxer, 6'8", John Jones training partner. He's gonna be a tough test for Chase, and Chase is gonna be a tough test for Maurice Green. But I cannot wait for that fight. Everybody's excited about it, and it's gonna tell us a lot about what's gonna happen with the future of the heavyweight division. We think we have one of the best heavyweight divisions in combat sports, one of the most exciting for sure. And if we have Guto Inocente fighting Marcos Brigagal, 2 absolute monster kickboxers that both do MMA. I think Brigagal's record's like 17-6 as a professional in MMA, and Guto is a former Glory kickboxing world champion, and he's a former UFC vet. So these guys, and Brigagal was a 2-time national kickboxing champion from Brazil. So that fight right there is one of the craziest fights on the card that not too many people are talking about. But in Brazil, that's a major fight, and it's a huge fight for us. A lot of people are excited about that. But it'll tell us a lot about our heavyweight division. We still have Alex Nicholson, Dylan Kleckler, Frank Tate, Junior Dos Santos. We have a ton of people in this division. Verdum is still out there. Roy Nelson, Alan Belcher. All these people are still out there, and we don't know what's going to happen. Maybe we have a number 1 contender spot after this. The winner of Guto and Brigagal fights the winner of Sherman and Maurice Green. Me and Masvidal will do some post-fight matchmaking, see how all the results of the fights happen, whether it's even Alex Nicholson. Alex Nicholson, before he got KO'd by Chase, was doing great in that fight. It was an excellent fight. Alan Belcher was doing great against Junior Dos Santos before that fight ended. So I think we have a ton of amazing potential matchups lined up in the future, regardless of who wins or loses. But I think that night's going to tell us a lot about the future of the heavyweight division for us.
I think another contest that's kind of going under the radar here is Jesse Ronson and Curtis Millender. The one that I'm very excited for, 185ers, 2 guys returning back to the Gamebred cage. Obviously, Jesse making his debut in Orlando. What a great performance over Anthony Njokuani. Millender fought a very smart fight against Joel Bauman, got the win. Both of those guys are exciting, man. They both have hands. They both have good ground defense. So this one will be really interesting. I think it's really going to come down to who can break who. I think it's going to be both guys who don't know how to step backwards. They step forward. I think it has a chance to turn into a 3-round dogfight if it doesn't end early. Is this one of the ones that you got really excited with when you matched them up together?
Super excited, and maybe not a lot of other people know that fight too well. But Jesse Ronson, he's either on a 5-fight or 6-fight win streak currently. He's the number 1 ranked fighter in North America and number 1 ranked fighter in Canada. We love Jesse Ronson. We love Curtis Millender. I think both these guys are so well rounded, they'll probably nullify each other, trying to take each other down, and we'll get a great fight on the feet. But you never know. That's the thing with the Bareknuckle MMA. I'll watch one guy fight, he'll totally dominate somebody, and in my brain, I'm like, man, I don't think anyone's gonna beat that kid. And then they'll fight somebody on the next card, and then they lose. And then that person loses that beat him on the next card. So you're kind of like, man, like this is different, like every punch counts, every punch matters. The punch from a grounded opponent to the guy on top of him matters. A jab matters. Everything changes when you take the gloves off.
One thing I really like about this card is we're seeing some new faces to this Gamebred product. Obviously, we got Maurice Green in there. We got Charles Rosa. We got Slippery Pete in there. And then one big one that sticks out, obviously, Kevin Lee, a guy who's been wanting to fight in the UFC. He was talking about the Contender, had a tune-up contest a few weeks ago. You guys got him. He's taking on Sal Almeida, a guy that's done a lot of training with Masvidal and Jake Paul to get ready for their Diaz contests. Overall, what's the process like to get Kevin Lee to fight Bareknuckle?
Actually, Ali had been telling me about Kevin, but we never solidified anything. A lot of it had to do with we were on such a great trajectory until the boxing match happened, and then we kind of got stagnant and went on pause mode. So that kind of ruined a lot of discussions about fight cards coming up and people being on those fight cards. And then when it got to this date, we owed a lot of people fights, so we kind of stuck with those guys to put on the card, which ended up being incredible anyways. But I met Kevin Lee. I actually met him at the last PFL event at the Hard Rock, and he told me he wanted to fight, and I told him I would get it done. And so we got it done literally that quick. I met him, probably had him booked within a week and a half, and that was it.
Another
super excited to have him though.
Another debut that we get to see, Alessio Sakara, a guy that you guys announced last year, signed with Gamebred. And now here he is taking on Prince McLean, going down to 205. Do you think this is a guy who can really settle in this promotion, become one of the faces of it?
For sure. And we really want to go to Italy. A lot of people don't know this, but we have America's Got Talent. It's one of the biggest shows on television here. He's the host on Italy's Got Talent. So he's a major celebrity in Italy. So we're going to Italy. We're going to do a show there. He's going to help us with that. This is just the start of the beginning of his contract. He actually, this is a tough fight. We have a Dutch kickboxer in Prince McLean, who's an incredible striker. He showed that in the beginning of the Nicholson fight. Obviously, he got caught in that fight, but he was doing really well up until that moment. And we're excited to see both guys compete with us. Alessio Sakara signed a multi-fight deal, so he'll be around with us for a minute. But we're really excited to watch that fight. I think that fight's going to be one of the better fights on the card as well. I mean, I think every fight on the card is going to be incredible. So, yeah, I love that fight also.
Another reoccurring theme of this fight card is Boston. You have a lot of Bostonian talent in this one. Charles Rosa, Slippery Pete. When I first saw this one, I was like, wow, he is definitely on to something. This one is going to be up there for my fight of the night talks. Are you expecting this one to potentially steal the show?
Yeah, man. I've been friends with Rosa for years, and he's never fought for me. But I followed Rosa when he was an amateur. When he was an amateur, I remember he was 9-0. He was the man in the Southeast. He would also fight. I think when he turned pro, I think he was fighting with CES or whatever up in those Foxwood shows and things like that. But coming up, when we had island fights and we had just become a pro organization, he was one of the high-level amateurs that were competing on the scene. And, over the years, we always had mutual friends, and we just kind of became friends also. And he'd call me for little situations or advice, whatever, and I'd always give it to him, and we'd always remained super tight, super cool whenever we see each other, and glad to finally get him on a card. When he was released from the UFC, he also went on a 5 or 6 fight win streak. So some of our date scheduling didn't work out. He had either had a fight booked or whatever it may be, but we always wanted him to compete with us, whether it was for Gamebred or any other shows that we had. So super excited to have him. Tyson Chartier, he has been blowing me up forever, and sometimes I couldn't respond because I didn't have a date in mind, so I felt horrible for that. But I love that guy. I respect him so much as a coach, and I'm glad that he's had some people fight with us before, but he told us about Pete. We're like 100%. That is we would 1,000,000% want that guy on our cards for sure. That's exactly what we're looking for. He's also on a 5-fight win streak. So we're really excited about that. I think the winner of that could also be in some sort of title contention for somebody fighting for our inaugural 155 title. Right now, we're really trying to build out our divisions and have champions in each weight class, and then develop our ranking system so that we could, build stars throughout the organization and have these guys fighting for titles.
Every time we talk before an event, we always talk about who could be the fight of the night. And I have some contenders here. And obviously, Costa and Davis, that's going to be up there. I think Millender and Jesse is going to be up there. I think Slippery Pete and Charles Rosa is going to be up there. And I think the one you're going with too, how can you not say Jason Knight and Josh Weems? I mean, this fight is freaking absolutely crazy. These guys don't know how to go backwards. They don't know how to go forward. There's no quit with these two gentlemen. It's kind of funny. Jason told me that he reached out to Josh a few months ago and was like, hey, man, you're the type of dude that I want to see fight. Let's do it. Josh was like, okay. When you got
they had messaged me. I didn't even – they matched that fight. So I don't even get credit for that one. They said they wanted to do it. And I was like, absolutely. I love that fight. So they made my job a lot easier. But, I love Weems. I love Jason Knight. I've known Jason Knight for so long, man. I remember when this guy was a pro at 17 years old. He probably had one of the best pro records ever before getting signed in the UFC than anybody you could ever hear of. And nowadays people get on the Contender with a 3-0 record. They win. They're 4-0 in the UFC. I don't even remember, so don't quote me on this, but I feel like Jason Knight was like 17-1 or something crazy. I remember back then, either 12-1 or 17-1, something nuts. And he took like a fluke loss somewhere along the lines at one of those shows, but he had the best record. This guy was like reverse triangle, go plata, whatever, like the craziest submissions, and he was 17 years old doing it. And like it was awesome to watch him come up. He had never fought for us as a pro before he went to the UFC. He fought for us for Icon. He fought for us for Gamebred after his UFC career. But I've been around Jason fighting since he was an amateur and a pro at 17 years old. Josh Weems, love that kid, amazing, comes to fight every single time. If he fights between 135 and 140, he's going to be super hard to beat. I think when he fights in the 45 or ever goes up above that to 55, I think those are the only times that Josh Weems ever really has trouble. So I think they're doing a catch at 140. I think this is the perfect weight for both guys. It's going to be an incredible fight. Can't wait to watch it. And you're right, it should be fight of the night. I have so many fights of the night on that card. It's insane. Tyler Hill versus Gervonta Ross. No one has said a word about it. It's going to be phenomenal. Even Mike Sanford is fighting
David Zellner.
David Zellner, who's an absolute banger. He just fought on our Island Fights card. He fought Blake Singley, and it was a bloodbath. That guy's a warrior. He was a warrior. He fought in the PFL. Super tough dude. That's going to be a great fight. Him and Mike Sanford. No one's really talking about that one either, but I'm really excited to watch that fight also.
You've been doing this for so long, for 14 years now, and you were such a big part in so many guys' careers. Chase Sherman, Alex Nicholson, obviously Tyler Hill for a long time, Gervonta Ross. I mean, there's a bunch of them on this card. Is it cool to be able to work with these guys after their times in the PFL, after their times in the UFC?
Well, I think, look, I love all these guys, and I, to a fault, I've become friends with so many of them, and there's so many UFC cards that we don't even say anything, but we'll have 3-4 guys on one UFC card that came up through some of the promotions that we work with here, and a lot of the cards are like that. And I always tell them, like, Gamebred is different. We will never what is it called? What would be the saying here? We would never punish you or hold it against you if you took a loss with us. Like, if you come and fight, like there's a pressure when you're in the UFC. The UFC is matching the greatest fighters in the world. And if you're not in their brain potentially going to fight for a world title or be a top 5 fighter, you're probably not going to last very long there. you know? So there's pressure there. If you take a couple losses in the UFC, your next fight, you have major pressure. So even stylistically, you know, a guy who, let's say it's Brandon Davis or Chase Sherman or somebody who's like a banger, super exciting, in their brain, they're like, man, I might have to go for a takedown here. I got to do whatever I can to secure a victory. And that's a lot of people's attitudes, but they'll do that because they need to secure their job and make sure that they still have a job after they fight. We don't have that here. Like if you come out and you fight, you're going to be rewarded for that with more fights, you know? And I think when I can do that to people that have fought for me in the past and provide opportunity for them, whether it's people that are currently in the UFC now, or not, you know, some of my buddies are in the UFC now. If they get released, like they have a home, they can come fight with us and they'll get paid good money, and they'll be rewarded every time they win and put on good fights. And for me to be able to provide that opportunity for people post UFC and pre UFC, nothing makes me happier.
You know, whenever we see you put on promotion, the stands are absolutely filled. A lot of stars. We're getting some celebrities. You know, your last Gamebred one in Orlando, David Njoku was there. Johnny Damon was there. Your last Islands Fights card, you had obviously Roy Jones Jr., but you had Jimmy Uso there, Pensacola product. So if I'm understanding this correctly, did you go to high school with like Roman Reigns, the Usos, and all those guys?
Yeah. We all grew up together. So they're my buddies, man. Obviously, they're like superstar famous now. I don't think Joe's like the most famous dude in the world, or Roman Reigns, but Joe and John Fatu and Josh, they were all buddies of mine growing up. So we go on double dates and different things like that in high school and stuff like that. But we're all friends, good friends. So.
All right, now going forward here, obviously we got the big show on November 15th. Why should fans tune in? Why does someone need to watch this fight card?
Because this fight is the only reason this fight card was made was for the fans. That is it. It's for the fighters and for the fans. It's not for our league. It's not for anybody else in the world. It is for the fans and it is for the fighters. They get to compete, and it's going to be the most exciting night of fights we've ever put on in the history of Gamebred or any organization I've ever been a part of or worked with in my life. Every single fight on the card is a fight of the night candidate. Every single fight on the card deserves a main event spot. Every single fight on the card, you know one of the people fighting. Unlike a lot of cards that are out there in the universe, like you can't tell me you don't know one of the people in each bout on the card. And if you don't, great, you'll get to know that night and you'll know them afterwards, because it's gonna be mind blowing. It's gonna be one of the greatest fight cards ever, most exciting fight cards ever. I predict there'll be a stoppage in almost every single one of the fights will end in stoppage.
You know, so a few weeks ago, I did a little trivia contest with Josh Weems and Jason Knight where I tested their Gamebred trivia. Now, I want to test the trivia of you to see how good you know your fighters. So, first question here, you have one guy on the roster who has fought in 4 different decades, the 90s, 2000s, the 10s, and the 20s. Who is it, Dean Toole?
Charles Bennett?
Absolutely. Charles Bennett is Charles Bennett. Started off in the late 90s and Pride, I believe.
Yeah.
Pretty amazing. Now, you have 2 gentlemen that are about to set the record for the most times fought in Gamebred on November 15th. Who are the 2?
Tyler Hill?
No.
Oh, well, definitely Alex Nicholson. The most times in Gamebred.
It's the guy that's to sneak up on you because he didn't start that long ago in it. He's fighting in one of the bigger fights of the night.
I don't need any hints. I'm hold on. Let me look at the fight card. Let me look at the fight card.
It's going to stick out to you right away. You're going to be like, oh, yep.
Okay, Nicholson for sure. Oh, I mean, it's either Chase or Weems.
It's Josh Weems.
Yeah, but Tyler Hill's not on there?
No, I believe this is going to be Tyler Hill's 4th one.
Oh, yeah, Josh Weems fought on Gamebred 1. fought Isaac Ruiz from
Yeah,
Mexico.
and he
Incredible.
also did. He also did the Miami one. He did the one in Jacksonville. He did the Biloxi one. He did the one short notice in Orlando, and this is going to be 5 in a row for him. All right, how about most knockouts in the platform? Who's got that?
Chase. I meant not Chase. Alex.
Absolutely. So those are the 3 trivia questions. Looks like you got them pretty good.
You got to give me some good questions, man. Those are easy.
All right, last question for you, Dean. Let's end on, man, how much fun are you and Jorge and Victoria and the whole crew having with these promotions, man?
We love it, man. We love it. It's if I tell everybody the second, when I became CEO last year, I always tell everybody, look, the second that I'm not enjoying this, I'm out. So it's I have no plans of ever being out. I love what I do. Thank God I've, my brother and Ian and Nick, Levi, AC, they had all taken over Island Fights a couple years back, Devin. Thanks to them that they get to run that show and keep it going, keep it super successful. Island Fights is such an amazing show now. The amount of people, I think the last amount of people we had in there was over 4,000 people. I don't think anybody's doing that amount of people at any show, especially on the regional scene. So, I thank all them, thank the team. Victoria and George are incredible to work with. And I think we just have a great team overall, from content to production to back of house, front of house, like everybody collectively. We have a great team with everybody. So love what we do. Love who I'm doing it with.
I lied. I got one more that I forgot to bring up. One thing that I think really sets you guys apart and really makes these shows enjoyable is the pacing. I mean, you're giving them fight after fight after fight after fight. Is that something that you've thought from the beginning that's going to be really important for the success of this promotion?
Well, it's me. Like, I'm a fight fan at the end of the day, so I watch fights more than anybody. I critique everything, especially production. I feel like, after our Gamebred boxing event, I actually messaged Dana White, and Dana, we were texting back and forth, and Dana was telling me how impressed he was with the pacing, with the production. He said our event looked better than Showtime's event. So, I always kept that in my head. I'm like, okay, well, if Dana White likes what we're doing, likes the pacing, then I think we're doing great. Also, that comes from UFC Fight Pass. Like, UFC Fight Pass, those guys are experts at what they do. Like, they want an hour and a half to 2.5 hours tops. They only want a 6-fight main card. They want to have the people watching, and then, they're in and they're out. They want to captivate the user experience or the audience member. Like, if you're watching fights, I don't want to watch an hour-long clip of an intro of a fighter before he walks out, or then B-roll to the promoter talking. Like, nobody wants to hear from any of us. They want to watch the fights, man. Everybody tuned in to watch the fights. Let them watch the fights. Nobody wants to see me inside the cage, me inside the ring. They love Masvidal, but no one wants to see anybody on a microphone inside of the cage or the ring. They want to watch fights. They tuned in. They're already watching. Give them the fights. And as soon as that fight's over, let the next people walk out. You could do a little thing for the featured bout, co-main, main event, get the people hyped up. But everybody, they're sitting at home and they're watching. They're a fan and they deserve to watch the fights. And so we're giving them. So that's what we do. We pride ourselves on the pacing. I don't want a 5.5 hour long event. I want a 2.5 hour show. So that's it.
All right, Dean. Well, thank you so much for talking to me, man. I can't wait to see you in Biloxi, and I'm so excited for these fights, man. It's going to be off the chain.
Same, man. Appreciate you, brother.